what the employers don't like anymore is like the live interview. So they'll take 100 or so applications because people are applying to too many jobs. They're using like the Amazon one-click purchase, spray and pray to a job, and using the cover letter that my pet peeve is you have to make the cover letter specific to the job and make the employer feel special, like you're not applying to a lot of jobs. You've found something in this job that you like. They know it's a copy and paste cover letter because they've seen more cover letters since before noon that you've put out in the last 3 weeks.
Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Inside Japan podcast. I'm Charlie, and on this episode I'm speaking with my boss, Peter Lackner, who is the man behind the curtain at Jobs in Japan. We go into when Japan's job market will normalize, how you can stand out with a video interview, especially if you're a non-native speaker of English, and some basic visa rules that surprisingly few foreigners are aware of. I hope you enjoy this conversation, and please consider giving us a rating on iTunes if you're enjoying the podcast. Peter, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast.
Hey, it's great to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while. So last time we had a conversation, I think it was the pandemic was in full swing. It was difficult, if not impossible, for foreigners to come over here and start new jobs. So what has changed in the last year or so since we last spoke about the jobs market in Japan?
Okay, so as you know, the pandemic came in, so Japan was basically closed for about like 650 days. So that made it very difficult for people to hire and all this, as you would expect. So back late last year, they were letting some foreigners in, but you had to do some extra paperwork. And then, but from June 1st, they basically, you can say they opened the floodgates for students and workers. Well, actually, that's what you would think, but that really hasn't happened because there's some, extra paperwork that you need done.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it is possible to come to Japan to work. So,
Okay,
which is
because
good.
there's definitely been a slowdown of movement, and you would think, and this is just from my basic understanding of economics, is that if supply is constrained, there's a constraint on supply of workers. You would think that that would mean that the price or the salary that you'd be able to demand would go up because there's not enough people going around, so people would need to pay more for the limited number of workers available. But I haven't noticed a specific rise in offered salaries or things like that. So why do you think that is? What's a possible reason for that?
Well, there's a few reasons, but one is even during COVID, uh, schools were not paying more for the salary because Japan has very strict, labor laws and all this, and so you can't have like put someone's salary down and up and all this. So basically, if one salary is it's a ratchet, so it only goes in one direction. So basically, you're going to give, and then same with benefits. So you can give more and all this, but once you put them in place, taking away is almost impossible. So what they're going to do is what some of the schools did give kind of like signing bonuses or probation completion bonuses, relocation assistance, and a few other things like that, which could be just temporary because when we're getting the teachers back at the normal rate, and then those are gone. So, but yeah, a few of the schools during COVID would give referral bonuses and all this, but those have been cut back because now they can get workers from overseas again.
So what are some ways that foreigners who are currently in Japan, who are trying to find better paying jobs, what are some ways that they can kind of either differentiate themselves from other people or look for things that are for people who have been here for maybe the whole pandemic and they've built their skills, they've been here a couple of years, they're sort of better than just like a new hire just fresh off the boat with no skills. What are some ways that they can kind of earn a little bit more money?
Okay, so, well, you're talking about teaching in general, but no,
Yeah.
there's different jobs. So, but basically for foreigners in Japan, there are basically two categories of jobs. So one that only a foreigner can do, which might be some different IT jobs or teaching English or something like that. And there are jobs that even a foreigner can do, which is going to be your maid jobs, your sort of the manufacturing, food processing, and all that. So yeah, put them apart. So the ones that even a foreigner can do, those are going to be low level and basically. For in America, you'd have the migrant workers coming over for the fields and all that. It'd be something similar to that. So,
Mm-hmm.
but for the only a foreigner to do. The Let's just take for English teaching as an example. Wages haven't gone up, and a couple of the reasons for that is we have foreigners that will take those jobs. So I was speaking with a kind employer that was using Jobs in Japan, and they were looking for a part-time teacher. And I said, the wage you're offering is kind of below market rates, and to get a better teacher, you might want to pay a little bit more. I'm not saying like pay over, because if you pay too much, it's not going to guarantee you a better teacher. It's just going to guarantee you someone that wants more money, which I'm
Right.
fine with that. But paying less than average is going to hinder hinder the crop of teachers that are going to apply. So, and basically they just said, oh, this is the same salary we used last time when we were able to hire 3 good teachers. So why should we pay more when we can still find someone?
Wow.
I'm
That's
like,
so that's so
what can
crazy.
you do? It's like, okay, well, you got lucky, but you probably want to pay more.
Yeah, I can't believe people can accept some of those salaries because I mean, I live in Tokyo. A lot of people who live in Tokyo, they know how expensive it is, and I think you can't really survive in Tokyo in the city, at least like within Nijisanku, the main 23
Right.
wards. You can't really survive on less than around 280,000 yen a month. Like less than that, and you're living in like a tiny shoebox apartment, and you're probably living in a shoebox apartment
Yeah,
anyway.
poverty. Yeah, basically you're
Yeah, it's
living in
basically
poverty in an expensive city. Yeah.
right. And then if
So,
you can't afford expenses, you can't afford, if you have a medical issue or something, I had to have a surgery a couple months ago, and that kind of thing is, it's a shock when you have an expense like that because if you're just living at subsistence level, you want to be able to put some money away, especially with the exchange rate right now. Like I've got friends who have student loans back home, and basically
mhm.
the cost of their student loan has gone up by 20 or 30% or something in the last
Yeah.
3 or 4 months. That's for a lot of people that's now that I don't know.
Right. But no, I just used that example. But no, there are some good employers on the site and all this. I don't want to make a doom and gloom. So we
Of
have
course.
one ALT position on that's at a private high school in Tokyo, and they're offering like 320,000 per month. So that's decent because it is an ALT job. So I don't want to call it a teaching position. You are the assistant language teacher and not the teacher,
Right.
and they're looking for someone that's in their 20s and all this. But no, and there are some decent positions out there, but yeah, the wages as a whole have not gone up because well, a lot of the schools themselves have been squeezed.
Right.
So if it's an English conversation school or a JUCO type of thing, so yeah, they're just struggling to survive.
Hmm.
So a lot of them don't have the ability to pay more, and I'm sure they'd like to, but no, it's just a fact that they can't. So this is what we can offer, and that's that.
Yeah, so if there are people who especially those from countries like United States or UK who have student loans to pay, how are there some ways that they can make some extra cash on the side? Like because I know I had some trouble with that with my visa. You have to go to the immigration office and ask for permission to do a second job or to do some other kind of like side gig kind of
Right, especially
work.
if you're an ALT, because the ALT, I say the visa for that is different than the humanities visa, which they
Right.
use for Eikaiwa, English conversation. So you would actually need permission to work outside of your visa category and do that. But no, there are some other things, but there's different growing industries inside the English part, and there's some shrinking. So English conversation schools, as you used to know it, that's kind of shrinking a little bit. But especially for the adult learners of English, the corporate training that got hit very hard, as you would, because COVID was just the corporate budgets. So it's like, okay, we had this English teaching, these courses. I guess we're going to cut that because we don't want to cut staff, and without from work from home, it's like, you ask your employee, like, hey, Suzuki-san, would you like to commute all the way in to Tokyo for your lesson with John, or would you like to do this online lesson? Which the online lessons are going to be cheaper for the teacher and for the
Hmm.
students. So and they don't want to commute all the way into Tokyo. So it's like, oh, I'll just take the easier one. So a lot of the corporate training got, I say that shrank a bit. And those corporate training teachers were making more than how you say for your, I say the early childhood education teachers, if you would.
Right, that's for sure. Like I was doing a few sort of freelance English teaching gigs a little while ago, and it was interesting to me because I my history is in high school and kindergarten teaching. I mostly taught at the public education level, and teaching business English, I was getting 5,000 yen an hour for these classes,
Yeah.
which that's a really great amount of money to make for something that's actually not all that difficult, because a lot of it I felt like I was learning from them. I was teaching this marketing exec for a big tech company, and
Hmm.
I'm just like, okay, let me find some English language questions I can ask about marketing so I can like take all of his experience and learn it for myself. But yeah, there are definitely some kind of smaller side gigs that you can get like that are going to make you a little bit more cash. But I wonder, like, are those things actually, are you able to do that? Because I've heard that freelancing, even on a humanities visa, freelancing is not technically legal. I know a lot of people do it and then just hope for the best when they go to renew their visa. But what do you know about that?
Well, if you're doing it under the table and all this, but I'm sure for you yourself, you're like an independent contractor, and if you have a contract with the school and all this, or with the company, and then you're paying your taxes, there's nothing to prevent you from doing that. And even for your visa guarantor, people are like so like, oh, I need a full-time job for a visa, which you yourself know is not the case because you have a visa and you are only working a bunch of part-time jobs. You just have to show that you have a livable income coming in and that you need one company to act as the guarantor, which is different from like a real estate guarantor. A visa guarantor is basically a testimonial saying this is a good guy and things like that. So.
Yeah, it's complicated, and it's funny because I tried to find the rules when I was writing. I think I wrote an article about this on the Jobs in Japan blog a while ago, and if I can find it, I'll link to that in the description. But it's more complicated than you might think, and it's not easy to find the real information. I was looking on the Japanese government website, and I couldn't find it anywhere in English or in Japanese. The actual rules for what are you allowed to do under this visa? Are you allowed to do a side job? Are you allowed to work in other things? And I got in trouble when I renewed my visa once for because the humanities visa they changed in around 2016, and they added engineering to the category, so it's
Right. Hmm.
engineer, humanities, and international services. And I thought
Hmm.
that's very broad. That's like I can do anything under that, right? And I had been doing some web I called it web engineering just so it
Right.
had the word engineer in it for the visa renewal. And I got in trouble for it. They said you can't be doing all the categories. You have, you're an English teacher. That means that's what your visa is for. Like you got given a visa for the English teacher part, not as an engineer. So if you want to change to be an engineer, that's okay. You can renew your visa, but you can't be an engineer and a teacher and a, artist or whatever other things you want
Yeah,
to
jack of
do.
all trades. Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
not a jack of all
exactly.
trades visa. Yeah. So,
There's no jack
but
of all trades visa. Yeah, exactly. So I would say be very careful about that kind of thing. And if you are worried about the kind of work you're doing, if you're trying to renew your visa and you're not sure if the kind of work that you're doing is strictly legal, then I would say definitely talk to a lawyer about it. Don't trust people on forums like
no,
Facebook and
no,
Reddit and stuff. They
don't go
don't
on the
know.
forums. Yeah, talk to a visa scrivener and all this because it's the same thing. Like, don't take financial advice in a bar. Yeah, it's something like that. So these things online, there are people giving bad advice, and just because the person's lived in Japan a while doesn't make them an expert in it. But yeah, but the interesting thing, of course. People think, oh, you need a full-time job to make money and all this. And if you're a proper university teacher, great. But and if you're like an IT, yeah, get that full-time gig and all this. But for the normal English teacher in Japan, which a lot of the foreigners that are probably listening are coming over for, there is a definite ceiling to what you can make. So for full time, so you're not going to make how you say 50,000, 60,000, $70,000 US teaching English. So of course, education has always been a low-paying industry, which
Around the
yeah,
world.
that's yeah around the world, which is not fair, but it's just a fact. So, but what you'd want to do is make sure that you're getting the skills up, which are marketable and all this. a lot of the people that were the corporate trainers, they didn't, they weren't able to parlay their, how to say, get their clients as like private lessons anymore. They weren't able to get that because you would think like if they're teaching at ABC import export company or whatever, it's like, oh geez, we're ending the contract. It's like, do you want to end it all? I could kind of do this on the side, but a lot of the teachers, they weren't acting like what I tell my staff too is like, you work for your clients first. You're employed by Jobs in Japan, but you work for your clients first. Make sure they're happy and work in their best, how you say, best interest. And then later on, they might be saying, "Oh, geez, we're going to have to cancel this contract, but we really want you to stay and teach a couple of things. Is that possible?" Or even the teacher would have some, how would I say, some sway with the company. It's like, oh yeah, you don't want to give me a raise, but without me, you're not going to get that renewal with that company because
Mm.
they want to keep the same teacher. So they would have some, how to say, just some bargaining power. But yeah, the things I would do now is, yes, of course, if you're coming over, getting a certification like the CELTA, Delta, TISA one, but those are all which one's better, and they're not all made, I say, equally. So
Mhm.
even if it's a longer course, it doesn't mean it's better. So, but the thing that I found is there's a big demand for the early education teachers for their looking for the hoikushi. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah, so I think I Ghost wrote an article about this, about the kosodatte shain,
Xian. So
chien
basically,
in.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's a
the hoikushi
hard
is
thing to.
basically, how I say this, the Japanese license for, it's a license
It's like a
caregiver for like a
childcare license.
caregiver for the schools, for the preschools and all this. And if you want to have like a certified preschool, you're going to need to have one of these people.
Right.
But foreigners can even sit for the exam. There's no, how I say, nationality, how I say, restriction and all this.
Yeah.
But what's terrible about it is that even if you pass the test, you need to have permanent residency or a Japanese citizenship in order to use it.
Mm.
So yeah, so basically that kind of stinks. So, but there is something like a hoikushi light, which is called the kosodatte shien-in, which is basically the co-pilot. So if you have that, the nursery schools and the preschools, they're not going to fire you because they need someone with this certification to, so they can get the government money and the certification. So something
Right.
like
And
that.
I've heard stories from a few people who there was someone who I knew who had that in Yokohama, and he said that having that license, because it's not that difficult to get. It's not something like you don't need to study for a year or go to university or something to get it. It's a relatively easy to get. But because the hoikuen or the yochien, that I think it's only for hoikuen, right? Like the hoikushi. The
Yeah.
If they don't, like you said, if they don't have someone who has that, they're not entitled to the government money that they can get, which means that they can actually offer you a higher salary
Yeah,
because
they'll offer you a higher
having,
salary.
yeah.
You're basically golden because they're not going to fire you because there are so few people with that. Not so few, but that's in demand. And depending on the coup in Tokyo, they even give some rent assistance and all this because there's a lack of these daycare facilities. So they want to encourage these, how do you say, these people to work in their coup. So
Mhm.
basically, if you get that, yeah, you can get money from the government for your, how do you say, for your rent, job security, a higher wage, and all this because the I say the preschool and kindergarten level for English teaching is growing or it hasn't shrunk.
Mm.
So that's one that the parents are very, I say, agreeable to send their kids to an international preschool and all that. And then after the preschool part, okay, then they make the decision like, are we going to go the international school route or are we going to go, I say, the Japanese school thing, but they'd like the kids to go to the international preschools to get kind of like a bilingual start so they can pronounce English better and not have this fear of English and all this, and then put them in the Japanese school system for the normal brainwashing that they'll get in the Japanese school system.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the conversation, and I just want to take a quick moment to mention that this podcast is only possible because of the support of JobsinJapan.com. So next time you're looking for a job, check out JobsinJapan.com. There are tons of jobs on there, not only in English teaching, but also software engineering, hospitality, marketing and consulting, among many others. Most of the jobs on the board do not require any specific level of Japanese, and you can get started in minutes. So next time you're looking for a job, check out JobsinJapan.com, and let's get back to the conversation.
Okay, so apart from things like getting a qualification or a license or something like that, what are some other ways that people can make more money as an English teacher, or in a sort of a field like that maybe they've only been in Japan for a few years? What are some more ways that they can earn more? Because I think, yeah, there are some very competitive jobs out there. Like you said, the job on our board right now that was 320,000 yen for an ALT. I'm sure they've get hundreds and hundreds of
Yeah, they're
applications.
flooded with applications. Yeah. No, what I would do is no, in the first year or two, you're probably going to have to take the lower salary because you don't have much to offer an employer, like in experience and all this. But I would try to find as many part-time jobs as you can, and there's some that you can even do with a full-time job. So one of the, I say, part-time online teaching jobs on our site, it's offering like 3,000 yen per hour, which is good. But they call their, their teachers coaches.
Coaches, yeah.
But no, it's tries and all this. It's on the site. But their first classes they teach mainly professionals, and the first class that they teach in the morning is from 5:30 in the morning online.
Wow.
So it's like, oh yeah, so okay, for 3,000 yen an hour, sure, I can get up early and work from 5:30 to 7:30 or 8 and get a little bit of money, and then work at the full-time gig and all this, and still have my evenings free. They do have the evening courses and all that, but yeah, I can get some more of those. The other one is to basically hang out your shingle and be like a school owner yourself, but that's going to be hard. So unless you have something special or different to offer, because it used to be, oh geez, it's going to be Charlie's English School and we have native English teachers, but now that's not enough to differentiate yourself from the competition. So it's got a little bit more mature.
We did a podcast with Simon Moran about that. Simon Moran, sorry, I always say his name wrong. He talked about this a lot and said that actually a lot of people think that starting an English school is a great idea, but actually it can often be kind of like golden handcuffs in a way, that you get stuck doing this thing that maybe it's hard for you to replace yourself because maybe the kids and the parents like you, and so then it's like, okay, well now I have to teach all the classes because the kids want me in the class, and you're not necessarily, if you don't know how to do the numbers, if you're not very good as a sort of finance person or as a numbers guy, then you're going to really struggle. You're not going to be able to make enough money, and you're going to have all these extra responsibilities on top of doing the actual teaching. You've got to be a money manager, a marketing officer. You've got to learn all this stuff, and maybe even get like your spouse involved or something, which then complicates your relationship because you're working together. It's
so there's a lot of problems when the husband and wife thing, because what's often happens is that the English teacher, often a male, will get married to a Japanese, and then they're like, oh, you're not making more money here, maybe we should make our own school and all this. And then so the wife is, well, she's Japanese, which is but she's not an accountant, she's not a marketing person, she's all this, and sometimes it's good for her to deal with the parents and all this, and but it doesn't work. And then the male, who's the teacher, he used to be a semi-breadwinner, and basically a provider, with his salary of maybe 300,000 a month, but now he's working for the company, the school, which usually the wife has the name on the the forms for the company, and so he's basically working for his wife for a zero salary, or for an allowance. So that often doesn't work out well. So but it is having many part-time jobs. But no, if you were to make a school, one of the more clever school owners I know, she actually changes the teachers for the classes every 4 months. So she rotates them, And she does that for two reasons. One is I'm guessing that she probably had one of those charismatic teachers that were in her school that tried to make a competing school and trying to poach all the students.
Right.
But then it's like, oh, if you're rotating the teachers, and you can say, oh, you have to get used to different accents and all this, and this person's better with this area grammar, this one's better at pronunciation, whatever, different teaching styles. And so then the kids are like, and oh, geez, okay, so they get a different teacher, so they're not attached to one teacher. And it's also good for the school that, oh, geez, I like Jennifer Sensei and not Tom Sensei, but it's like, oh, don't worry, you're only going to have Tom Sensei for another 2 months, and then you're going to have Jennifer or like Sally or something like that. So it's like they will stick with it, and it's not like my favorite teacher that I've had for 2 years quit. I don't want to take lessons anymore.
Right. Then that kind of makes it easier for you as an owner to have more control over what happens in the school and not be beholden to the teachers. And it's a shame, really, because I think I worked really hard to be a good teacher. Like I really wanted to be a great teacher, and my students really, I think my students benefited from that. But it's difficult. There are some schools where I think they're almost worried to have a teacher who is too good. They're worried if they have a teacher who's really great, because replacing them is going to be very difficult, because I think it's just the Pareto principle, right? It's the 80-20 rule. 20% of teachers do 80% of the good work.
And well, it's the same with regular companies that are afraid that someone that they hire is going to basically replace them or be promoted over them. So, but no, if you have a decent school and a decent setup, and if you're a decent teacher yourself, yeah, you'd love to have a rock star teacher that would bring in students and have a very good, how I say, retention rate. It's like, wow. So yeah, Charlie Sensei's teaches what he does great classes, and wow, his students don't quit. Wow, that's a great thing to have. So, oh, with Charlie Sensei, yeah, before the normal lifespan of a student at our school was 18 months, but with Charlie it's 3 years. Wow, we're really banking with Charlie. But then there is that fear that Charlie's going to open up a school right next door and just, poach all the students. So, yeah, there is a fine balance. But no, if there's open communication and you're a good employer, that shouldn't be so much of a concern.
So what about the video interviews that we have on our site? Because I think we've seen some really troubling ones that I think people don't realize that it's almost the same as a normal interview. You don't want to show up wearing your pajamas with cheese stains on your shirt. And we've seen some pretty bad ones. What are some things that people can do when they're doing video interviews, especially now with the numbers of COVID cases going up? I'm sure a lot of employers will want to use the video interview system more.
Yeah, it was interesting. So we introduced, the video interview system for, basically when we introduced it, it was to help the highly fluent non-native speakers get in front of the employers better, because what they're going to see is there's going to be a lot of like name discrimination, and John Smith, he's going to be at the top from America because, oh wow, by his name, he has to be fluent in all this. But Miguel Sanchez, who might even be from America, he can't be fluent with a name like that and all this. But no, it was, or someone from a different, not from the big five, not from Canada, America, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and all that. So, but it was like, oh, take this video interview, some nice questions that are their softball questions, like, yeah, you should be able to hit them out of the park. But just to show, like, this is who I am, I can speak clearly and all this, but now a lot of the employers are demanding it of them. And due to COVID, people are a little bit more used to taking online video interviews. Before, they were like, I'm not going to do that. If they want to see me, they'll live video. But now they're finding out it's better for both. So basically, take the video interview, see who I am, because what the employers don't like anymore is like the live interview. So they'll take 100 or so applications because people are applying to too many jobs. They're using like the Amazon one-click purchase, spray and pray to a job, and using the cover letter that my pet peeve is you have to make the cover letter specific to the job and make the employer feel special, like you're you're not applying to a lot of jobs, you've found something in this job that you like. Instead, they're going to say, I'm applying for your job which you put on this site. And as you will see from my cover on my resume, I'm a perfect match for the job, which then there's no details of why you're a perfect match. You're expecting the employer to actually go through this and find out why. So they know it's a copy and paste cover letter because they've seen more cover letters since before noon than you've put out in the last 3 weeks. So, but anyways, short story long. So basically, the video interview is that most of the employers will just do one click and they'll send the applicant basically a notification like ABC Happy Genki School is interested in you to take the video interview. Please do it. And so if the person does not take the video interview, they're out. So it's like, oh, they were just applying to all jobs, and this is just the first hurdle to get over to see if they will actually take it.
Right. Well, it's
So
already a sign for them. If they say, "Hey, could you do this for us to make it easier for us to go through applications," and you don't do it, they're like, "Okay, already I know they're not the kind of person who's going to, take instructions, listen to what we say, do something that we ask them to do." That's already a big red flag for them. And they're just like, "Okay, well, that makes my job easier. I can just take that person out of the running."
yeah, they're actually interested in my job. So, and not just any job. Well, they might be interested in any job, but they're especially interested in my job. So,
Yeah.
but what I see is the big things are that people aren't dressed for it because it is a real interview. So while you look fine like that, but yeah, you're not dressed for an interview. So yeah, actually put on a shirt and tie. Yeah, so that's the one thing that's because it's a video, and so the appearance does happen. And then just the other things like the lighting, make sure you have a microphone and all this, like a decent microphone and all this. But yeah, make sure you're in a clean room. So I showed you like, some of the examples of someone would be in the room looked like there was a tornado that went through it. It's like, oh, that's yeah, it's a double-edged sword because yeah, you actually get to see the person and be articulate and all this. But
Yeah, but I seem to remember there was one that we saw where on paper the candidate didn't look all that great. Like there wasn't anything special in her application, but and I think she might have been from Indonesia or something like that, like
Right.
an Asian country. So already in Japan, I think there's some not necessarily large, but there's definitely some discrimination against South Asian people in terms
Or
of
even
English
European,
language
yeah.
jobs. Like,
So
and but she was fantastic. Her video interview was really impressive. Her pronunciation, I think she had like a British or like
yeah, she spoke English better than I did. Yeah.
yeah. And
So
I was like, wow, like this actually would make a huge difference because on paper maybe she doesn't look as great, but her spoken English, her politeness, her professionalism just shone through on the video interview. And I was like, wow, everyone should be doing this if they're like
no,
a half
everyone
decent
should be.
candidate.
And you make a good point because a lot of the hiring managers are, well, you can call them busy, you can call them lazy, whatever, but basically they want to interview the fewest people to get the job done. So they're going to go through the list and they're going to pick out the people that they're going to look at the cover letter and the name and all this, and they might get 5 people that they're going to interview, but that leaves all the rest. So, but if you already have the video interview, it's like, hey, they already took it, so hey, let me take a look. It's like, wow, this person's good.
Yeah.
And then let's set up a real interview. So, but for the native speakers, the big thing that they do is when they're answering the questions, like, tell me a little bit about yourself. That actually doesn't mean like, tell me your life story.
Yeah.
So I went to Inglewood Elementary School, and yeah, no. So what it means is, tell me what you think I want to hear about yourself, which is relevant to the job. And also like, let me know that you're agreeable and trainable and someone that I want to work with.
Right, and actually interested in teaching and being, or if it's a teaching job, actually interested in it, because I've seen some. What was the one that I saw recently? Where there was a guy who said, he's like, oh well, it was between working in a factory in the United States and teaching English, and I was like, well, I don't really want to work in a factory. And it's like, that doesn't.
Thank you for
good.
sharing that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Do you prefer teaching, these one-on-one lessons better than? Sweeping out a factory warehouse or something like that, or but
it doesn't really inspire confidence.
It doesn't inspire confidence of like, oh, this person wants to work for you and all that. So, so just those things that because what the video interview does is any interview you go to, there's basically three categories of questions. One is, can you do the job? So the technical things. And then that's where the strange things like, why are manhole covers round? How many barrels of sand does it take to mount Fuji, or like the technical things? And they'll be able to see that from your resume. Oh, you have this certification in teaching, you had this experience, great. The other two is, do you think he would like the job and excel at it? So it's like, oh yeah, okay, he has the technical part, but hey, will he enjoy the job? So
Right.
I guess people have heard like the stories like for some people with like a doctorate or PhD have been like taken out of the running to be a police officer because they found out that being a police officer, there's a lot of repetitive tasks and it's a little mundane, it's a little boring for most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So they say, no, he says he wants a job, but I think he'll be too bored and he'll quit. So the same thing like for the school, like, oh, you have a doctorate in English and you want to teach at our preschool? No, you're going to get bored too quickly. But yeah, the second one is like, basically, will he enjoy working here? So you might see that. But the third one is where the video interview comes out, is like, can we stand the person? Do we want to work with them?
Mm.
So that's a cultural thing. So it's like, so yeah, okay. So he has the qualifications. Okay, I think you'll like it here. We're a good place to work. But wow, he looks like an ass. So, but or he didn't come out well, or maybe it's like, oh, that body piercing. I'm sure he's a great teacher, but we have to dispatch these people to these schools, and it's Japan. It's kind of conservative, so
Mm.
that body piercing is not gonna fly.
Mm.
So yeah, so basically, so the third one is basically, can they stand you, or do they want to work with you? And that's also with the tribalism, and people want to work with people that they I can relate to, and all this. And I know they say diversity is great, but there's not enough diversity hiring. People who hire who they like relate to.
Yeah, right now is a kind of interesting time where it's sort of switching back to what we used to have in Japan. But I'm hoping that there'll be a lot more opportunities coming soon, and once Japan kind of like changes its mind about the endemicity of COVID, we'll be able to have a lot more people coming into the country, a lot more interest in not only teaching English in Japan, but maybe opening up a lot more other career options for people in Japan as well.
No, I hope so too. I don't see it happening until like the acclimating until about March or April next year, because right now, even from June 1st, they said, oh, the floodgates are open. But before, they had like this, how to say, approval process to get into Japan
Mm-hmm.
and all this. And so that took a lot of time. So now they have something called EFRS. It's called Entrance Returnees Follow-Up System and all this. So it's an automated system. But before, it took like 2 weeks extra and a little bit of paperwork to get your employee in from overseas. Now it's taking about 8 weeks because, well, of course, the bureaucrats at immigration office aren't going to say like, oh, this is why we're delaying things, but they're not going to tell you why it's delayed. So all these schools are going to the immigration office with hat in hand, or your Oliver Twist like seconds. No, you just no. They don't know when they can get them in. So there still is that how would I say, uncertainty of when you can bring the teacher in from overseas. It's like, and and then for the domestic hiring, that has not acclimated, because when you bring someone in from overseas, even if it's an inferior school or something like that, they're going to try and stay for a year
Mm.
or fill out their contract because they're scared like, oh, geez, if I quit within my first month or 2 months, yeah, they told me I'll never get a gig in this town again. So they're afraid, and they're just trying to make the best of it. And so those people that are coming in won't be on the market for the domestic rehiring or the job change, the mid-career change, until March, April, which is the fiscal year in Japan.
Okay, so we'll be looking for that. That's what I think. That's when it's going to start to go crazy. March and April
I
next
think
year.
that's
That's
where it's
when.
going to be kind of a little bit normalized. But
Yeah.
no, if you're living in Japan right now, it's how I say, it's easier to get a job. The rural areas, if you want to work in a rural area, geez, you can go from Tokyo to work in a rural area and see real Japan and all that. There are a lot of good opportunities there,
Mm.
and you will be able to live, how I say, better on the lower salary.
Mm, mm. Okay, thank you so much, Peter.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay, and we'll do this again soon.
If you enjoyed that episode and you like what we're doing with Inside Japan, please consider going to iTunes and giving us a 5-star rating and sharing this episode with a friend who you think it might be useful for. As always, a huge thank you to JobsinJapan.com for sponsoring this podcast, and if you're looking for our other episodes, you can find them there, and keep us in mind next time you're looking for work in Japan. Thanks so much for listening, and see you again soon.